I'm Dan Gunn. I'm the CEO of VIATEC. And I know in our earlier sessions today already, there's been a territorial acknowledgement. But I just like to kick off because I live in a part of Victoria called Brentwood Bay. So I'm right beside the Sawat and the Sartlip Nations. And they're a pretty rad group to be neighbors with. Our whole village is very cool. And we really appreciate that they let us be among them. And so that's not your normal formal territorial acknowledgement, but I've been trained to make it personal. And so I wanted to do that. And thanks to everybody who's joined us. I'm the CEO of VIATEC, and our panelists today, you probably have already seen the read up, but we have Brandon. Give us a wave, Brandon, so people know that's Brandon from Cuboh. And we have Corina. That's Corina, and she's from FunctionFox. And Chris, and that's Chris from AOT. My job at the beginning is to just give you a quick overview of the tech sector here in Victoria. I'm also, like many of our participants in the career fair, somebody who moved here for the lifestyle. And I got here about 20 years ago, moving from the Toronto region. And Victoria's tech sector was quite a surprise to me when I first got here. It's now the largest industry in our community. It's about $4 billion a year in annual revenues and over $5 billion in economic impact. There's about 1,000 tech companies. There's about 17,000 people working in tech roles within our community. And VIATEC's job is to bring our tech community together. We're the industry association, and we have a goal to help do two things: to cultivate the most cohesive tech community in the world, and to help it achieve over $10 billion in revenues by 2030. A lot of people, when they come here, they see the government things, they see the tourism things, and they see the academic things that we have here. And those are important legs of our overall stool. Tech has grown to be the largest industry, and they all work well together to make a rather robust economy here in Greater Victoria. Some people, when they think of Victoria, they only know about tea and flowers like the Empress and the Butchart Gardens, and those are beautiful places, and we love them. And if they do know that there's a tech sector, they don't actually understand how large it is or how diverse it is. And so we identified 12 key subsectors that do include software and IT, and you're going to hear a lot from software and IT companies as you go through this career fair. But it would make sense that we also have a lot of ocean sciences and marine technology, given that we're surrounded by a beautiful moat. And so we have lots of places to study and build things. Advanced manufacturing is another big part of our economy. Gaming is a rising one. AR, VR are also rising, as they are in every community. But it's diverse, and we have roles for many types of people with many backgrounds. And we encourage you to ask some questions here as we go through this with our panelists. And what we're going to talk about right now is just sort of what they're seeing as the things that are in the highest demand. And so I'm going to start right now with Brandon. And these are questions that we had in advance, and I'll be watching for questions from the audience as well. But Brandon, the first question we talked about was, what would you say are the most in-demand programming languages and tech stacks in our community today? What are we looking for the most often?
Yeah, so our company is, software as a service, and we're web-based. So very likely the when you're in that world, high demand from what I've seen so far is, PHP, Python, and front end more so with React.js over Angular at the moment. But I mean, that's without being, properly exposed, I would say, to maybe the other areas and other types of software products outside of web.
And Corina, what about in your experience? What are you seeing as the most in-demand roles and some of the tougher ones to fill so we can get people with those skills excited?
Yeah, for us, .NET still for us is predominant, but really when we're looking for hire, it's not so much, the skills that you have in the past, but how can you adapt and learn going forward? So there's things that, are new to our dev team. And if they can adapt and learn those as they go, and we do training on the job and even, school on the job, it's the people that are open to new learning is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I echo that.
Yeah, great. I'd like to come back to a little bit about that soft skill stuff too. But first, Chris, on the sort of on the tech stack and language side of things, what are the things you're seeing most in demand?
Yes, I totally agree that it's more we look for more balanced kind of people. So we are more I guess a consulting kind of company. So we put teams in place, and the interesting development that's happening right now in the space that we play in is that the engagements are going from a project engagement where we want you to build this thing and there's these timelines and there's this budget, to more we want to engage you because we want you to give us a team. And when they want teams, they want a balanced team. So they want everything all the way from, you know, Scrum Master to DevOps to front end. The kind of front end, we're not a super Windows shop, although we do have some Windows skills. But the kind of thing that they're looking for is they're looking for Vue.js, they're looking for Angular, React, that kind of thing. Backend, Python and Node are big. We also do a lot of Java because government's got a whole lot of Java, so a lot of our contracts are with government. So Java skills are really good. But actually what we look for even more than that are people who've worked in or who are working the agile way, especially in a DevOps kind of way. So if you've got anything to do with, you know, if you know how to do pull requests, you know, you've worked with Git, you've maybe done some, you know, a few YAML files, that kind of thing. Those are really, really becoming very, very useful. We need people to have those skills as well.
Great. And you mentioned Vue.js, and there's actually the first question that came in is Vue.js growing in our community? Would anybody like to comment on that or add to that?
Well, I can just quickly say my experience. So I'm not a super JavaScript front end developer. I have actually done some stuff in Vue.js, and when I analyzed it like a year ago, Vue was beloved by devs, but not really not a huge amount of penetration. It's got way more penetration now. But the interesting, you know, that's something starting to become mainstream when government's using it. And at least the last 3 engagements that we've been on, they've chosen Vue over React and Angular. It's interesting.
Great. Anything to add on Vue.js, Brandon or Corina?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that, you know, seems to be the difference between our answers is, you know, public versus private sector and the technologies that they use. So I agree, Vue.js is growing, absolutely. With the private companies around town, I don't think I've heard of too many that have, you know, adopted it, one or the other. The main thing is, you know, everybody's moving away from jQuery. So we know where we're headed.
Right. Okay. Do you have something, Corina?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay.
Ben.
So just quickly, because I promised we would talk about some of the soft skills. And, you know, in our role at VIATEC, we get constantly asked, you know, I'm about to go into university or into college or start some training. What should I focus on? And my answer was often, you know, possibly disappointing. It's like, I don't even, when you graduate, whatever it is might not exist yet. And so we talk a lot about the soft skills that that people need as well. And so what are some of the characteristics that you think that people who want to work in tech jobs need to focus on the soft skill sides? And we'll go with Corina first, and then we'll go around the room from there.
Yeah, part of our interview process is not even any development. It's about how you think and how you solve problems and how you approach a challenge. And so for us, it's about how you think about just attacking something and then figuring out, okay, what method do I use and who do I want to involve? And even if you don't have the skills, how do you pull together the team to get the end result that you want? So for us, it's the soft skills is very important. I'm not saying the technical part isn't, but that can be taught, whereas the soft skills can't. And so, you know, it's how you think, it's how you learn, it's how you're adaptable to change and how you're keen to take on new things that you know nothing about. So that's what we look for.
Chris, would you like to add anything? And also maybe, is there something that gives you a good hint that somebody has that sort of diverse self-starter in them that makes them, you know, a desirable hire when we're looking at the soft skill side?
Yeah, so I'd agree to a certain extent with Corina. I think that there's something which I always look for in people, and that's curiosity. I need people who work with me who are curious and interested in stuff, and you can tell that pretty quickly when a person starts to figure out, you know, starts to ask questions about yourself. The other thing which is really important, it's not only about being able to you know, work in teams and stuff like that, which is important, but it's very important that people are able to explain things simply, right? So presentation skills, the ability to distill something down into something which you can explain to a team and get them all on board is really, really important. And I kind of disagree with Corina in the sense that it's something that you're born with, that you can't learn. I actually think that it's something that you really need to practice and that you can learn. To make yourself understood clearly and simply is something that you really can learn. And presentation skills are really important. Because I'm sure that all of us have to present ideas to customers, to teams, to whatever, and to have people who present well. It's really, really useful.
Great. And Brandon, anything?
What was that?
I said, anything you want to add on this soft skills side of things?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially being a part of the startup world for quite some time, individuals that come in and have characteristics of drive, passion, the curiosity that we talked about, wanting to learn all the time, right? If they're not willing to learn and continue to learn, like this is an environment, like this is tech changes all the time. And we always have to, we will never stop learning. And those individuals that do 100 things, 1% better than an individual that does one thing way better than everybody else, I'll go with those individuals, 10 times out of 10.
Great. I see that there's a question in chat related to salespeople, and we wanted to make sure that we were only talking about technical roles, because actually we're finding that sales and marketing can be some of the tougher roles to fill, to find the right candidates for. And so to the panel, what would you say are the most helpful tools for someone wanting to enter our community in a sales role, customer success, or marketing? And I'll start with Chris this time.
So I think sales is a really interesting one, because I actually worked for Atlassian for a short time, and and I'm sure that you've all used Jira or Confluence, but Atlassian never ever employed salespeople, right? So they always said that our product sells itself, kind of thing. So I kind of am of that point of view. I think that what we really are talking about is we talk about people who are able to get across the good features of our products well. So we're probably talking about this combination of sales come marketing. I think, again, it's about having enough technical depth to understand what you're selling and what you're trying to explain. And then it's about the skills to be able to put that across to your audience, whatever the level of your audience, but to put it across at a level that they really get it. So it's technical depth and then ability to simplify and put it, in the right context. That's really important.
Great, thank you. How about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I completely agree. You need to have the technical depth to understand the product, obviously, that you're selling yourself. It's going to be heavily dependent if you're, in an inbound or an outbound role, right? If you're doing demos all day long, like Cuboh does, you need to know your product inside and out, and you need to be able to answer and field the questions that those people are going to have for you, those restaurant owners, for us anyways. Because if you can't answer that, it's not going to go well.
Great. And Corina?
We have a lot of salespeople on our team, and I agree with both Chris and Brandon in terms of depth of knowledge. They don't need to be technical in nature. We can give them that information as part of the training. But in Victoria, good salespeople are really hard to find. So if that's a skill that you have, Victoria is a great place to be, and I'd love to hear from you. So.
All right, thanks. And I'm going to ask one of our pre-planned questions, because it kind of ties to something that I see in the chat, and that is, and we'll start with you this time, Brandon. And that is, what would you recommend for folks who are concerned that their current experience set is too niche to find a role in our community?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what too niche would mean, but realistically, they need to take a look at what skills they have and how they can apply them to the new job, or how they're looking to get your foot in the door. The one example I have for a lot of people is it may not be directly related, but like computer science graduates, some of them don't necessarily want to be developers. Maybe they want to be a support or an onboarding specialist. Maybe they want to be that sales engineer that has more technical understanding of those roles. Well, how can you take what you've learned and apply it in that area rather than just being a developer? And if you can make that relation and sell yourself in the interviewing process, that's where it matters.
And Corina?
I would just add that sometimes if you're niche oriented, you might have bigger skills. Like, I know Brandon mentioned this earlier, like a DevOps role, right? Like, what skills do you have that can be more well utilized that are really well sought after. So DevOps is big in Victoria. That position is highly regarded and needed. And so perhaps your niche can meld into something like that, where you understand the technical ability, and then you can be a good presenter or communicator to the rest of the team that really doesn't understand the technical side to the depth that they need to.
Mhm.
Good point. And how about you, Chris?
So I think that you really need to look at what your skills are and whether you want to continue down that niche. I mean, maybe it makes sense to find a niche community where you can really use those skills. If you really want to get out of your particular niche, though, then I think you need to have a look at stuff like cloud native movements. So you need to have a strong look at cloud native development, which encompasses everything from agile to DevOps to obviously your AWSs and your OpenShifts and all of those kind of things. Because again, related to DevOps, I'm seeing a huge demand for people who understand how these things work, understand the tool sets, can do things like understand security, connecting with an OIDC provider, we're writing YAML scripts. So that whole environment, and I actually think that so DevOps is one of the words I really hate because it doesn't really define anything well. You can't say I'm a DevOps engineer. Well, you can, but I prefer to call these kind of people our infrastructure engineers. Infrastructure engineers are the people who basically are the troubleshooters, the people who can make sure that all of the beautiful software that the software developers are building is actually deployed and is supported and all of those kind of things. So I think that there's a huge niche for that, and there's something for everyone there. Like whether you like to write Python scripts, or whether you like to use a lot of the tools that are out there, learn the tool sets, learn the infrastructure around cloud native, and you'll always have a job.
I completely agree. I mean, there's one thing in a company with DevOps where you can horizontally scale and you can turn up the power of a server and pay more for one server. But those individuals that know how to spin up new regional nodes, especially as a product grows and enters new regions and countries, those individuals are hugely in demand, and they are very hard to hire for.
I see a question through the chat that's specific around, they're asking about programs like Lighthouse Labs and BrainStation. And we actually had a planned question about people who are transitioning out of a current career or starting to build their careers. And what programs, events, community groups would you recommend for someone wanting to enter into our tech community in a tech role, marketing, sales, customer success? It doesn't have to be any one of the specific ones, but what are some of the programs, events, and groups that you think people should be taking a look at to help transition or round out their career? And I'll start with Corina.
Yeah, so obviously VIATEC.ca, there's a great events board and lots of different interests that you can join there. Is also looking at which job boards are looking for people and migrating through there. And then Slack channels, there's lots of really good Victoria Slack channels. So there's the People Ops, there's the Tech Founders, there's I don't know, help me out guys. There's YYJ Victoria, Tech Ladies. For the ladies group, there's iWis.ca, there's women's professional groups. So, if you want to connect with me, I'm happy to share additional ones, but I would say, do your networking, go to as many events as you can. And Victoria is all about who you know and getting your name out there, and you'll get well connected if you're going to multiple events. So Victoria is a small group, but it is all about who you know.
Does anybody have any other organizations, groups, or programs that we should add?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what individuals are looking for in terms of the education side of things. The Lighthouse Labs is what I think something like 8 to 10 weeks for a boot camp. It's a good start to get going. Camosun's got a 2-year diploma program, hands-on, which is fantastic as well. So, and then of course UVic in general as a software engineering degree or a comp sci major. Each program has its values and its pros and cons, and it's more or less what are you pairing it with.
Anything to add, Chris?
Not really. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been really on the networking trail for a while. I do sometimes find that some of the open source groups are interesting in that they open avenues to positions and just where things are being done. But by and large, LinkedIn sometimes quite interesting. But I'm not really on the whole Victoria networking trail at this stage.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. And just to go back, Corina mentioned our website, viatec.ca. We do our best to try and collect all of the tech-related events, networking opportunities, and promote them as a one-stop hub for that kind of information. And of course, the job board generally has over 100 open positions at any given time. So hopefully that's a good starting point for you, and many other groups in town you'll find through that event calendar. We have an interesting one here that came to us from Alex. And Alex is wondering a very specific question, but they're recent MBA grads. They've got 5 years experience. There's 2 of them from Ivy School of Business, and that's Western. And they want to relocate to BC. What kind of opportunities do you think are most likely available to a fairly recent MBA grad with 5 years experience in our community? Anybody have something specific or general to add? Looking. Karina's going to take a shot at it.
Yeah, I would say start with recruiters. Again, I'll go back to who you know in Victoria, and recruiters are really good at placing outside expertise. And Sue Maitland does a really good group for outside people. If you're thinking about moving to Victoria, check out Sue Maitland. She's got a monthly session that helps bridge the gap, which is really good and tells you about where to network, how to get a job, how to meet the recruiters. So I would start there. But recruiters will give you much bigger reach than trying to reach out yourself, though. So that would be my recommend.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just I mean, MBA is pretty broad, right? So, is it MBA and the IT technologies, all these kind of things. But fundamentally, yeah, you would definitely go through a recruiter, I would think. I agree with you.
Great. This is another specific question. This one came in from Airham. And it's about entry positions. So entry positions, internship prospects. What do they look like in our community in the summer of 2021? Are there any that are hiring or bringing in entry positions or internships in our community? I have some things that I can add to that, but I'd like to give it to the panel first. Does anybody have something they want to say on their own?
Yeah. Cuboh, I think we've got 2 or 3, co-ops right now, not necessarily deemed internships. I'm sure the name's interchangeable, but a lot of companies, from my experience, I don't know that they would necessarily post co-op as part of the position, but if there's an open job posting or a call for talent, I would apply there, and that's how I'd encourage to apply. Other companies may put the time into writing the job description of the co-op, but not necessarily from my experience.
I know that we've had a couple of, and again, they've been co-ops. We've had 2, to my knowledge, recently, and both of them have been really fantastic. They've both learned from being with us, and they've also contributed quite significantly. So I think as well, it's even if there isn't a job posting, it's worth getting in touch with the community, getting into the forums, and just throwing yourself out there, because if I come across the right person, even though we don't necessarily have an opening, I would probably suggest taking them.
Yep.
Well, I can add to that. Like Brandon said, and I agree, we wouldn't necessarily do a formal job posting for a co-op or an intern, but there's programs already in place through Camosun and UVic that do co-op placements. And so I would actually contact co-op or UVic or Camosun, because they have those already in place. They know which employers take co-op students, and then any overflow could be, to someone who's not a student.
That's a good idea. Chris, how did you find those 2 co-ops that worked out so well? To
be honest, I'm not sure, because I didn't recruit them, but I suspect they might have been through the university. I think they were both UVic guys.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna create a question that hasn't come in through chat or hasn't been discussed before, but about 70% of our participants today are not from within the region, and so it's great to see that many people who are starting to recognize that we have great quality of opportunity to go with our great quality of life. What are some of the tactics that you think would be most effective if I was living somewhere else and I was trying to break through into the tech sector in Victoria? to create some of those openings? Because you've given a great suggestion of like just reaching out and letting people know who you are, and maybe they'll create a co-op or an internship for you. But if I'm not here already, what are some of the ways that people from outside our region have caught your attention before? And I'll start this time with Brandon.
Yeah, know the company that you're going to apply for. If you just apply and it's a generic application because it's a job opening, we're looking for people for careers, not necessarily to fill a job role. We want people that are going to be with us that we can invest in and help grow in their career. So if they know about the company and the product and exactly what we're trying to do and solve in the world, you get a leg up right away.
Great answer. How about you, Corina? Anything to add?
Yeah, I would say Victoria is pretty cliquey in a good way. So try and make yourself in Victoria. People are going to be more apt to look at you if it's a physical role that you have to be in the office. So get a friend or someone in Victoria that you can use their address, say that you're coming to Victoria, that you're already planned on moving, whether that's the case or not. But if you say, oh, well, once I get a job, I'll move, it's going to be less likely that we'll look at those applications because we don't know how serious you are. So my recommend is move. It'll be a lot easier to find a job than trying to get a job in Victoria from outside. And then connect with the groups, like I said, that know the landscape already and the recruiters so that you've got a leg up.
Yeah, I'll just to reinforce that, some of the most successful people I've seen migrate to Victoria, they visited a few times at least, and they were setting up days of informational interviews and chats and doing the networking thing to get a foot in the door, and saying, I'll be back in 6 months for another 3 weeks. I'll be back in 6 months for another visit. And that allowed the relationships to develop and led to opportunities. Through the chat, we've got a very specific one about sort of adapting. So Thomas Remington asks, what would you recommend for an older IT professional with a lot of experience, but they've been out of the industry for a few years, and I assume they want to get back into it. So what are some of the things that somebody with a good history, but wants to get some current and relevant skill sets added? What would be some of the ways that they could go about doing that? And we'll ask you first, Chris.
So yeah, that's probably because I'm old. But I would strongly suggest to have a look at what I talked about before, which is the so-called infrastructure engineer. Get yourself across some of the things which are happening in the whole cloud deployment world. Take a couple of courses. AWS, Amazon does courses. Red Hat does courses. Get yourself across. What does it mean to deploy into a cloud kind of environment? Understand things like security, identity management systems. Get yourself Docker and Docker Compose and start to build some open source products on your desktop. So get yourself across all of that kind of stuff, and you've immediately got a foot in the DevOps door, right? And then if you've got the background skills, like you can write shell scripts, you've programmed in some languages before, you've even been a system admin or done something with physical hardware, you've got the kind of background which backs all of that up, and I would say that you get a very, very strong opportunity to become a DevOps engineer. Yeah.
Anything to add, Corina or Brandon?
No, familiarize yourself with the popular products, the cloud computing, AWS, GCP, Azure, whatever area it is you want to focus on. Like those, there's free courses out there. There's courses provided by those companies specifically. You can get certified. That'll help establish your knowledge in that area and should break down those walls pretty quick.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add there is maybe an alternate way to look at it is find someone in Victoria that is in a similar situation to you and is currently employed, and network with them and figure out how they've done it. And they probably already know the landscape of how you could fit in.
We have an anonymous attendee that asked something that we haven't really talked about yet around data science and machine learning. And their question is, how large is the data science and analytics industry in Victoria? We'll start with you, Brandon. Based on what you're seeing out there, how large is that the roles and opportunities for people with that background?
I think that's actually an area that's growing quite a bit. So the data science positions come with those companies that are having success within Victoria. So the companies that are starting to get upwards of 100 people and have their products expand globally need to perform, data science analytics on the information that they have, for help push businesses forward. It's all becomes very valuable. You just have to find those companies.
Thank you. Chris or Corina, anything you'd like to add related to data science and machine learning?
Yeah, so we dabble in data science. We've had a couple of nice data science projects in Vancouver with the police force there and stuff, and various sort of facial recognition bits and pieces. But I don't see a huge amount of demand. It's something that we like to play around. It's something that we think we have got good skills to do. And it's something which government certainly is kind of interested in. But I think it's not really prime time here in Victoria yet. In fact, I'm not even sure how prime time it is across Canada yet. We're seeing definitely more on the mainland. But it's probably worth keeping an eye open, because I think it's changing quite quickly.
Well, we've hit 2 o'clock already. There's always a moment in these panels where 10 minutes in, I'm like, are we going to have enough questions? And then, of course, we didn't get to everything. By all means, please go out and take a look at the booths that are available to you. You can talk to Cuboh, FunctionFox, AOT, all have booths that you can check in with, or check out the VIATEC booth, and we'll try and direct you to the people who are looking for people like you. We're doing the best we could to answer all the questions, and we hope we get more answers with the remaining hour of the event itself. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to the panelists for taking time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who tuned in today. It's amazing to get this much interest, and our sector is thriving, and we need lots of people. So hopefully you'll be among them soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Tessa.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.